Welcome back to the third day of our photo film event here in Berlin. On behalf of the three curators, which is Katja Pratschke on my left and Gustav Hamosch on the far left, and me, Thomas Tode. We are proud that we can welcome again Sarah Pucill in London, who is with us and who will, in the first part of this day, explain a little bit more about her longer films and with her longer films. And she is connected via Zoom with us. Then, of course, I would like to thank Lothar Derenthal, the director of the Photo Museum in Berlin, who is present here and who has invited us and allowed us to pop up with this event here in Berlin and to do the streaming. The procedure, I repeated for the people who are with us the first time. It is 45 minutes to present the materials for Sarah, and in the second part then for Gustav and Katja. And then after the presentation we have 30 minutes of Q&A, and then the break of 30 minutes, and then the second part was Gustav and Katja's work. And the same procedure. We would like to do it like a laboratory. We would like to know about the working process of the artist, the decisions of the artist. That is the idea of this masterclass. So to get an insight how the artists choose their themes, how they find the images, how they proceed with the photos in a kinematic context, which is our definition, the still image in a kinematic context. Okay, so maybe we present Sarah.
Yeah, welcome Sarah Pucill. Sarah is living in London. She's a filmmaker, a photographer, and also an author. Her work is internationally shown in galleries and at festivals. The film's won a lot of prizes. Her most recent film is shot in 60mm, like also her previous works, and as she said, maybe the last one shot in 60mm. The title is I Cut, and will have his premiere soon at the London Film Festival and later at the Jeux de Paume in Paris.
Yeah, for the people who were not with us yesterday, maybe I just say a few words what we have already seen. Sarah presented 4 short films from her early works about how the photo come into film, about stillness and moving film. So first of all, we had the projection of a photo image on an object. For example, a teacup intersecting with moving and animated film. So, for example, the cup moved and animated. So we have typical surrealistic imaginary, like the eye or the mouse or fragments of human bodies as a still image projected on these objects. And then there was a second very interesting part with the interaction of actors, or it was Sarah and friends, with the photos as objects. So very big photographies, and so we have this kind of relation with photo film. And then we discussed also the gender aspect of it. Surrealistic women which work very often with constructed images. And as Sarah said at the end, to create new invented space, new buildings, to build up something new, like in painting. That was our last comparison, because Sarah started as a painter.
And we could also see elements which we will now see in the 2 works Sarah is presenting. And this is the restaging and also the mirror. Today, Sarah is going to talk about her 2 latest films, Magic Mirror from 2013 and Confessions to the Mirror from 2016. Both works reimagine photographs by Claude Cahun alongside with her writing. And Confessions to the Mirror was published this year also as on Blu-ray by Lux, the distributor of the films from Sarah Pucill, with texts by Maxa Zoller and Laura Guy. So we are very pleased to have you on the second session, and looking very much forward for your presentation on your work on Claude Cahun.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the lovely introduction. And as I said yesterday, I'm very happy to be here as part of this photo film discussion, because it's helping me rethink my own work on this theme. So to start then with these two films, which I want to introduce, as has been said, they both restage or reimagine photographs by Claude Cahun. I was familiar with Cahun's work for a long period, from the beginning of my filmmaking. When I first saw some tableaux vivants reenact some of her photographs as part of a documentary, something happened which felt an uncanny moment. Not dissimilar to restaging of photographs by Isaac Julian in his film Looking for Langston, or in Derek Jarman's films on Caravaggio. Something about restaging, whether a painting or a photograph, something you've already seen that's in history, that was performed at another time, seemed to excite me in a way. This is something that film can do that's really very, very exciting. To just see it as a small part of a documentary seemed almost like a waste. That I just thought it would be wonderful to make a whole long film, restaging as many of these images as I can, so that although almost to relive, to enliven, to animate these photographs. And I think there's something about the fact that the experience of seeing these, the uncanny moment, is almost akin possibly to a reversal of time, where you're seeing the preparation and moment of a photograph many decades, nearly a century after this image was taken, of course, by the artist at another time. So, but there's some sort of maybe uncanny moment about seeing it come alive when, as has been discussed here, the photograph is always in the past. And this is almost an attempt. This almost is more than an attempt, because you actually do bring it into not the actual photograph, but the thought of it, the pose. I think photographs can be an idea. And one of the things I've been interested in Cahun and working through more and more is that Cahun already was cross-discipline. She performed in a theatre, an esoteric theatre company, and she was also interested in, she exhibited some of her pieces as sculpture, but both of those end up as photographs, but they're both also documents of other media. So there's something about restaging tableau that has something special about it. It has a particular intensity, and I think the intensity is because it's referring to something outside the film, outside my own practice, which is another artist, another practice, another time. Agnes Petho has written about the intensity of a tableau vivant film, and she describes this in terms of tableau vivant, normally considered in terms of painting. I'm thinking of it in terms of a photograph, but there's something about, I'm interested in how I've been able to prolong this moment. So the still photograph still appears, it's still stilled in the frame. I think the best tableaux maybe that I've done, and we can talk through those as we watch, are where almost nothing moves, just a shadow that's in the first photograph actually moves gradually as you're watching it and hearing text, or where there's a bit of air movement coming from outside, or in a projected image. In others, I've got air movement happening both within film projections, but also in the room. I brought a fan in the room so that plants are moving. So the point is that there's an intensity that's created via these tableau vivant. Part of it is about prolonging. So even when there are movements in the tableau, say one of the photographs Cahun did with a cigar, or the character holding a dumbbell weightlifting apparatus is part of the costume, but also ballet dancing is part of the costume. And both of those suggested movements that are already in the still photograph are enlivened in my film. So you see movement, but the movement is not added to the original photograph. It's already there. It's already implied in the original image. So that's something maybe we can just look at and see how that's happened. A key element also in these photographs is, of course, that Cahun was a writer as well as making photographs. And her writing also sometimes describes something in terms of painting, whatever. But part of my project here was to not so much want to do something as Cahun did, or it's what the bottom line of it is, to connect with the things Cahun was trying to say in her photographs and in her writing, and as a research exercise to bring together where I think often the photographs and the text are really coming close. They're in alignment. So I think really, rather than waiting, because we're really pressed for time, I think we should please maybe, well, first of all, I'll just introduce the first film, which was all in black and white, made mostly around photographs taken in the 1920s. And the text from this film is from Cahun's text, Vernon Avenue, published in 1930, which is translated as Confessions Denied, is about identity, both a social identity, but also philosophical rumination about the complexity of consciousness and identity, and themes around being split. Split identity comes up a lot in her work. I've selected those clips in my films and allied it with images of split self, which have recurred throughout my films prior to coming to Cahun. So the first image is of Cahun, one of maybe her most famous images, where she has a bald head. To have done this in the 20s is just incredible. Her own photographs, this is a photograph where she superimposed two images of herself in the photograph. And I have done that on a Bolex camera. So it's a similar method where you don't know what you're going to see till it comes back. And can we please see that first clip then, please, Ranulph? Thank you.
I want to scandalize the pure, little children, old people, with my nakedness, the hoarse tone of my voice.
Okay, thank you. So that also showed the beginning of the photogravures. They're not photocollages, they're photogravures that Cahun did with her partner. Her partner drew them from photographs. People may think I've taken Cahun's images. I haven't. I've actually restaged all of these, made the photographs, cut them out, and then animated them. And there's quite a few of those, so we'll see. So the animation of the photographs are moving, but the image within the frame isn't. I did add the hand on the face to the Cahun's image. That theme is in Cahun's writing a lot, of blindness. And it's a theme I've also used in my own work, of the hands on the face, blindness, in terms of image making. What is blind? What is image? Is it what's there? Is it what you imagine? Do you see more if you put your hands over your face? Okay, can we go straight to the next clip, please? This is about Barbe Bleue. I'll just say this, Barbe Bleue. This is a costume that Cahun performed in Le Plateau in 1929 in Paris. There's key images that are people really love of her work, and this is one of them. And she did make a photograph where she's got half of Barbe Bleu here, half of Barbe Bleu there, so she split. So Barbe Bleu is the, you probably know Bluebeard, the wife of the man who killed all his wives. And so she sort of placed her ironically as a dead doll, because you would be dead if you'd been killed. And I've actually inputted this theme of the Bluebeard as a mannequin, a doll. That's implied maybe in the photograph, not 100%. And I've done the same theme done the same process as before, where I didn't see the image till it came back. Okay, can we see it? And I've also, from this photograph, along with all the many others, I've created a set which is 3-dimensional and a scene, some of which you'll just see the beginning of. And so it's 3D and 4D I've given to these photos. And a key theme in Cahun's photograph is that they're all staged in an interior space, which is similar to what I've done in my work. And just in the distance, in a lot of her photographs, you just see these curtains, and you wonder, are these curtains part of a kind of, this is a stage? This is her saying it kind of is a stage, but it's a stage in my home. So I wanted to work on, it's something that scholars have written about quite a bit. So I wanted to sort of highlight that, bring that stage, and give that stage an enlivenment through the sound, through the clapping, and through this imagined stage. And thinking about, if you perform all these identities, you dress up, you put your makeup on and whatever, all these different roles, crossing gender and everything, and not predictably so. She's also the devil, she's also a mannequin, etc. If you're to do all that, it kind of is like a theatre. It is a theatre, and it's a theatre of the mind. It's an interior theatre. She never showed these photographs. They weren't shown in her time, but it's a sort of imagined capsule in this home, recorded as photographs, only seen several decades after her death. Apparently after she died, her partner called up a very famous museum in Paris and said, would you like all of this photograph work for nothing? She was a member of the Surrealist. And they said no. I said no. They didn't need it. So there's something about a time capsule that's very, very beautiful. There's also something that I think is precious and wonderful about this image of the four corner, both the photograph and the film. It can kind of have a life. It can be hidden and then have a life. Okay, please play. Thank you. It's too early. This is the cut in. I think it was meant to come the other way. It's meant to come earlier than this, Ranulph. Is it not earlier? Never mind. Yes, that's it. There. Yeah, the early one, the early part. Just do it from the early part. The early part. Early, beginning. Yeah, there's good, there's good.
Brighten the silvering on the mirror, wink, cheat myself, tart up my skeleton with a fluke muscle, correct my mistakes and copy out my actions. Divide myself in order to conquer myself. Multiply myself so I can make a mark. So I can impress myself.
Okay, we can cut there, Rana. We'll have to, I think. We'll have to click there. Thanks. I think we're really running out of time. Maybe I just wanted to show the next image, the quilt, because I think the images connect nicely with the text, where she wrote something about the poem placed with the image connects dawn as an undressing of the land in erotic terms, in the way that, and so in this image, the still image just has a shadow at the top. And it only came to me when I was restaging it to think, I could just bring that shadow down slowly. And I did it, I was so happy. And it connects very much with the text that she was writing, of sort of about sex, basically, an undressing of the body. We just maybe just see part of this, and then we'll have to click. We just see the beginning of it, please.
A troubled dawn, a horizon lost in the mists of the waves, fragile, sky of glass, blue-green. Her eyes become cloudy, paler, her breasts prowl. They're roses of love, their pistols stand up. Sun, impatient beam.
Okay. This is in the context of her writing. Yeah, okay. Of lesbian sexuality, which was really an early time to be doing that. Women didn't even have the vote in France, I think, at this time. So then there was, after that, a sequence where there's an image of Cahun and Moore both in the mirror, and I've maybe you could just show a scanning of that just ever so quickly, just like ran off, just so we could just see just for a few seconds the image of the couple dressed in the mirror. Maybe I can talk while you're doing it, and I can say what's okay. Well, never mind. This is another one. I meant the last bit of the last clip ran off. Sorry, I'm being a bit difficult now. We're losing
Sisters.
And yet,
here. That's good. Thank you. That's it. So this is where I restage a famous one of
Life,
Cahun.
death, ageless sisters.
and yet you
Never exist without your false twin.
You are bound together. You cannot wipe her out
without annihilating yourself.
Okay, and then she goes through the mirror. You can carry it while I sent it. So there were two photographs already implied in Cahun. She goes through the mirror there.
More
already
easily than
implied in Cahun's two images is, I think, a performance, a sequence there of these two separate photographs are somehow to be put together. I'm sure they're referencing Blood of the Poet by Jean Cocteau. I think I do have a piece I wanted to show with, but we haven't really got time. I need to move to the next film, don't I? The Crystal Ball. Maybe we can see a tiny bit of the Crystal Ball, which is clip 6, just the beginning.
love, conscience, selflessness. I, Jewish to the point of using my sins for my salvation, of putting my byproduct to work. My eye hooked over the edge of my own waste bin.
Okay, I think I hate to cut this. I'll talk a little bit. These are themes of metamorphosing over a lot of Cahun's photographs where there's a slight change in what she's wearing, and what I've done is bring them together almost as a performance. I take a certain element from the photograph, like the crystal ball, and make something from it on its own. And this is something I've kind of done to show the metamorphosis, whether it's an identity, you know, a presented image of the self, or through metamorphosing from word to image to sound. All these things are things, one performer to another performer, things that the film does. So I think I have to go now quickly and belatedly to Confessions to the Mirror that came afterwards. I wanted to make another long film, over an hour, both of them, because of what I'd left out, and I didn't want to fix Cahun, fix a certain way of making a film. So I wanted to bring in colour, I wanted to bring in their time in Jersey, and the resistance work that the couple did on the island of Jersey that they are famous for, and to emphasize their collaborative element. And Marcel Moore, who was her partner and did collaborate, they were a team to a large degree. Of course, Cahun was the writer only. So I'm just going to show a quick clip here of the beginning, an example where sometimes the image restages just a photograph, varying degrees, more or more. Often I'm taking out bits that I don't think are important because I've restaged everything myself, or not so important. Sometimes I take a section from a photograph, like just the costume, and put it in another setting, which is actually staged from her writing, which is what happens at the beginning of this clip. So we can watch it now. It's near the beginning of the film. It's around the theme of decorative corpse.
I am returning from afar.
Should be earlier than this, Ranulph. Should be earlier, should be the start. I think you've done a cut where, can it come in earlier? Or have you cut it? Yes, thank you.
Sufferings. Nightmares are the mirrors of reality. They say it to us straight. Corpses are decorative and easy to maneuver. Is this just a personal confession? No. It serves as a beacon for all survivors. I am returning from afar. I have the right to speak about it.
Knowing from my first glimmerings of consciousness that I would have been preferred stillborn, I was able to step off the path mapped out for me.
Okay, we can cut there, and I'm sorry about it. The shadow moves, but we will have to. So obviously, what happened to the couple? They were imprisoned. They attempted suicide. So obviously, it was a tragic. So her text, Confidence au miroir, which is where this film is taken from Cahun's maybe most important manuscript after Avernon Avenue, which was posthumously published, is about the time of their resistance activity and imprisonment. Those images all stage, apart from the first one, the photograph. I've said how that worked. So maybe can we go to the next one, which is just for a moment, the Goggles peasant woman. An example is in her text. She described herself as a peasant woman somewhere, as after the war, the house had been ransacked, valuables taken. And then I saw this image of her with the scarf, and I thought, oh, that's her, that is that. And it's also where she put in her mouth the insignia that a German soldier had given her then in prison, because part of their propaganda activity was to appeal to the German soldiers to say, look, we know you don't really want to be doing this. You're not going to get anything out of it. We could be on the same side. We're kind of not seeing it as a border between nationality, which was a left-wing thing that was going on then, of course. I can't think of the name that it's given. Let's just go to that. So Cahun describes my brush. I've taken that literally by staging something. So I've taken the face of the photograph with Breton peasant woman and put it in another setting before we then go into the photograph that's mimicked and restaged. A lot of people don't realize, but this background to these stages, these photographs, is actually their home in Jersey. I filmed it as digital film, which sometimes I project, and I've also taken photographs. I've mixed between those and restaged in my space, bringing flowers into the interior space. So mixing interior, exterior, and movement of plant movements, sometimes moving, sometimes not, both in the room and out and in the digital. Okay, can we see it? Thanks. We'll see the beginning. So that's clip 2, please. Goggles, great. This is from a photograph, and I put that before. Again, the theme of blindness, that she plays a lot in her image, masked as a blind. But also those are camera lenses, or I've invented them as camera lens. A passage through time. Time travel goggles. She's film.
And now, amid the chaos of the Second World War, taken by surprise, my brush draws a real Breton peasant woman. The blue-green, mocking seawater gaze that penetrates beyond the storm, beyond the mist-drowned horizon. In Jersey, we waged a war, an individual struggle for two. We were committed to persuading the German soldiers to turn against their Nazi officers, whilst sharing our house with a farmer, his proletarian mates, his wife and his brats, sharing everything we could spare with Russians in rags, our bread, our tobacco.
Welke Mann hat das Recht, ein Volk zu opfern, eine Regierung zu retten? What man has the right to sacrifice a people to save a government?
Okay, thanks. The sound was a bit of a problem there. Maybe I'm thinking actually because we're behind, we should just go on. I don't know why I couldn't hear all those sounds, which are quite important. They kind of keep the image moving in a sense. Could we just, I don't know what happened. There should be the Japanese doll next. Maybe it's just the next clip, or it's later in that clip. I'm not sure. I did have it all in one clip, private. I think you've misunderstood sorry, I wasn't clear about something. Can we look later in that scene on the Japanese doll? The image is used for the poster for this. That scene should be in there. If not, maybe it should be in the number 3 clip. No, it should be in, sorry, I mean 3.
Superb weather on the
Clip. Oh, never mind. Number 2 clip has the Japanese doll. Well, let's do this for now and we'll move back to the other one then.
So Ranaf
Maybe.
is looking for the clip, but he said
Okay.
that there's no number 2 Japanese doll clip.
Okay, there's nothing, Japanese doll doesn't appear anywhere. Private, okay, oh, it's here, private property. Sorry, this is it. I'm very, very sorry. Big apologies on this. This is private property and one of her best texts, I think. It describes their situation.
superb weather on that 16th of November 1944. Coming out of our refrigerator cells, they opened the door of a charming boudoir for us. 2 large, comfortable seats in the front row. How delightful. Big windows with the sun shining through. We're at the theatre. The set, the actors, do not disappoint us.
Already perked up by the limousine trip through the familiar town. Our chauffeur from an elite unit, a sort of blonde beauty queen.
They reappear at the interval. A sign hanging on the handle of the door where the jury is deliberating.
They offer us ersatz coffee.
Pour some for themselves. Watercolors on the walls. Views of Switzerland. The tinkling of silver spoons against porcelain. Or is it perhaps the bells of mountain cows? The conversation follows this pleasant course.
The Engadin Valley in Switzerland and the philosophy of Nietzsche. We were sentenced to 6 years penal servitude for listening to the BBC, and 6 months for having firearms and a camera.
All property and finances were confiscated.
That gaze, a click of the shutter. It pinpoints the Gestapo, passes through them.
A living Japanese doll, laughing at the inevitable future. Love reigned. Love alone inspired the intensity of the struggle.
Okay, I think we might.
This
have to
gave
cut
rise to
this.
hope.
Sorry, but we're going to have to cut it to get the others in. I think we might have to skip one still life, but can we go then to, I could just say around that image, there's an image of Cahun where her partner's head is just at the bottom of the frame as a shadow, sort of not as an accident. It seems very deliberate, and lots of people have written about that. So she's performing a Japanese doll, which is sort of ironic take on objectification that you have within the West over the East, but also and a colonial history in that, but also objectification of a woman, and she's playing with that. But she's also then in this image, I think, playing a Japanese woman potentially. So that's what I've constructed, and then the head, the shadow. What I've tried to do in the film is see that shadow come into the center, wherein the shadow then overlaps the head of Cahun or the surrogate Cahun, and then the photographs taken. So I'm kind of enlivening and playing with that. Let's go straight to clip 5, if we can, and just see the last of some still lifes, otherwise we won't have any. I had a black and white still life I wanted to show, which is what Maxa talks about, and I really wanted to show that, but let's just do this one. It's quicker and it's a quicker shot. Was going to come in at 1:50. Was going to come in at 1:55, 26:17 to make it a bit shorter.
That's the time he went in.
I lack the courage to find out what happened to Léon's daughters. I want to believe she is alive. I think of her sisters and of their half-Aryan children.
Your parents, my father, dead before Nazism. I cannot express the relief I feel about that.
I have to keep quiet so as not to reopen their wounds.
My mother, also dead, but my heart cannot bear it. Dead after he who, remarried, still kept watch over her from afar. And while her jailers, shameless liars, paid to lie, prevented me from taking over from them. Everything that might remind her of her past was to be avoided, so no member of her family was allowed to see her. I agreed in silence, but did not leave. In a few seconds, too fast for ballpoint pen to take down, memory records it partially, like talking cinema.
Les reproches ne servent point, surtout quand on les fait de loin.
Thanks to the man she had loved. Mummy left the hospital several times to lead an independent life. The last time in a little village in the south of France. I can still see the dining room, the harmonium, and hear Suzanne singing a Paul Delmé song. She loved it. Bright and carefree like a child, her eyes glistening with laughter on the verge of tears.
Okay, sorry about that. So that's animated into colour, and I reconstructed all those and handmade those sets. The last one I'd really like to show, which is the catwalk. I think it's so important because I've made into the film the series of Cahun did at the end called the Catwalk, which already seemed to be Cahun's wanting to make a film. And if you start playing it, then I can just talk over it to begin it. And also I've shown the It was, I think, about her oncoming death that she knew. It's a sort of an expression of her relationship to oncoming death. This is their home. That's the church opposite. And her French text is very oblique and poetic and surrealist and only half, not really intelligible. The sound should be there. Can't hear it. Hope it is.
Tant que la vie nous étreint, l'amour de qui me navre, en disposant de moi si proche du cadavre, s'accorde à ma faiblesse humaine et véritable, produisant mon champ clos à l'univers des fables.
Okay, so that is actually the end of the film. So the lady who was living in Cahun's house let me go in and film in the garden. So it's as if I've taken that space and brought it into my home where I've projected and we performed. I've had performers, but also I'm there at the end as well. What I wanted to do was not make the performer in both films become important in any way, in the way that mainstream film often does. You identify with, wanted them to just be, no, they're just a surrogate within the photograph, and they might change between different people, and to suggest the idea that we can all do that. Anyway, thank you. Sorry, it was a bit late, a bit too long.
Yes, thank you, Sarah.
Was the sound okay in the clips? I'm interested to know, because I was finding...
Yeah?
Good.
So okay, here it was okay.
Good.
Maybe you remember that, because I didn't mention at the beginning, you can see the complete film until Sunday at midnight, Middle European time. So tomorrow and today, tomorrow and on Sunday, you can see the whole film online. If you have registered, you had got an email with the link and the passwords. So.
Yeah, actually, both films. And Sarah, could you tell something, because you just ended and said that she had this feeling that her death was coming. So she was in prison and even tried suicide and was coming out of prison. Her partner as well. They were both in prison 1945, and they stayed in Jersey. Is this right?
Yeah, they moved to Jersey in 1937. They knew that this would be happening, that it would be likely to be occupied. They decided to stay. A lot of people did, do that. You're wanting to know about when the date came, I think it was a year after war had started. I think it was 1940, that it became occupied. So those images of her behind the window was a year before. So she's prefiguring, they're anticipating this would happen. We're already organized about how to do that. People would be wanting to do some kind of resistance, but they were advised to do, as I've been to the Jersey archive to see the museum, they were advised to do it in isolation and not to communicate with anybody, because 1 in 4 of the people on Jersey were German officers. You call them the Nazi German officers. So you just couldn't afford to, and people were being sent to camps just by somebody saying something, whether it was true or not. If you fed one of the Russian prisoners, and there was a hierarchy of people, I mean, we can start this long story and I won't stop. because of that, they weren't directly connected with other people doing this propaganda. They were doing it in isolation, and some people have said, "Oh, that wasn't successful." People would have realised that their German wasn't up to scratch of being German. But actually, it didn't really matter, because some of the German soldiers were in prison with Cahun and had said to her that these leaflets had impacted them, had some impact, just to know that people were there. That there was someone there who was quite educated, because she was referencing poets and whatever, and actually had some quite, thoughtful things to say, quite educated, that this had impacted, that actually impacted on, them deciding to get themselves arrested. Did I answer your question?
Yeah,
just,
if there are questions, please, now you have the possibility to write in the chat, or here also at the Museum für Fotografie. It's time for questions to Sarah.
Maybe we start with a simple question. I wonder what fascinates, maybe you can explain a little bit more, what fascinates you in surrealistic photography or in the photographies of Cahun. Is it, I don't know, the sophisticated imaginary, the riddles, the strangeness, or is it more the optical quality, the double exposures, the mirroring, mirror reflections? Maybe we can start with your fascination with Cahun's images.
Okay, yeah, thanks, because I probably didn't say that. I think because I've done so much work on her, I'm at a place now that's different to before I was making it, or when I first started. I don't have that fresh. The photographs were, as everybody has said, I'll be repeating the fact that they were outside their own time. They were way ahead. And that is stunning, literally. Wow, of course it's wow. If you're a feminist, engaged with feminist activity, really enjoyed and queerness and lesbian, there's nobody who is, there is nobody at that level of intellectual engagement and political engagement. I can say both of those really from these perspectives. And then further on, so that's the first thing, like way ahead and independent. Not she did have an education where she had studied philosophy, literature. And I think it's those levels that she comes in very strong politically, but also has a grounding in a lot of philosophy, the nature of being. And I find that, and her humor, the irony, the humor, kind of, she says, oh, well, even if feminism, whatever, we'd still be unhappy. Or there are lines where she says that almost debunk her kind of political engagement, but they don't. It's just that it's complex. And I think that there's a complexity. Maybe there's a madness, but there's a complexity of, and maybe an angst element. I mean, I can say that, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is, intellectually, she's just really far ahead to me. And so when I discovered the writing, then I could see, and maybe her themes around the split subject. So it's not just, oh, she can make an image in a mirror or something. It's I suppose this comes from my interest in psychoanalysis and philosophy around split subjectivity, that we're not unified and separate. And that comes into my interest anyway about phenomena, physics. We're not separate. We're only in the world because somebody helped us to come in here. If that doesn't happen, you're not. And when we go, we're inside other people. And I've made work around that with my mother, with Sandra. We're interdependent. It is an intersubjective element. That's what being is. And splits within the self can happen where, so it's all of that complexity really that I relate to on a personal level, but I find it's intellectually challenging as well. The enemy within us, not just the enemy outside, in a way. Yeah, I think that's important acknowledgement. That's not to dismiss the fact that political activity isn't important. And do you know what I mean? It's just there's complexities there. So,
And the photographs, they're just one part. You actually said that the photographs, they were shown and rediscovered much later, actually, because it's performance, it's objects, it's writing. And for us, from the perspective of photo film, your process of restaging, of course, is very interesting. This becoming into a tableau vivant. And I wanted to ask you, so how much is imagined? How much is researched or documented? You also went in the archives to see her photographs, and I guess they are probably not just single photographs, maybe there are also sequences shot from performances.
Or intuition.
Yeah.
Maybe you worked with your intuition.
my what? My intuition?
Yeah.
Well, they come together in a way. So I can just say I did do a lot of research. I did get every book out with all the photographs. Whenever there was an exhibition, I was going to see it. So I did do my research as much as I could. And also when I was doing Jersey, finding out what was happening there, going there, visiting, researching that as much as I could. I can give you details by the clips, which I did try to do. This is an example of, it was important to me to research as much as I could to understand what's gone on behind that, image, what have people said about that, you know. I think that the research came also from doing it. As I said, I think I didn't say this, but when I restaged some images, I felt I was discovering things as I did it, like, oh, right, so this person performing with this mask, they can't see, they can't move. So when I could have shown so many images. I'm still sorry, I've left off some of the clips where she performs the magician, where she has all the masks all over her. It was only in doing that you think, oh, she can't move. My performer couldn't move on the stage because she can't see. Quite a lot of or there was a black square behind her. I thought, what's that doing? Then when you restage it, of course, otherwise you wouldn't see the face. And the idea, for instance, as you said, intuition, the fact once you're deeply involved in something, then it starts, you get an intuition. And Francois Lepellier, who is the authority on Cahun, has written several books on her and is responsible to a large degree or totally of bringing Cahun to us in a way, did say that there was an intuition, and I think that's come from, you know, when with the barbe bleue, that was an intuitive, but actually it's looking at all the work. You see the interconnection between her writing and her photographs, and if you look enough, then you get to something behind the writing and behind the photographs. That's what I was interested in. Like, that's the key to these themes that keep coming back in a way. So it was only when you restage, you think, oh, that was really difficult to sit there, and then I suddenly got the idea, oh, I could do that. It was just through doing it, really, that I then thought, that must be what that is. But I think I did know, actually.
But restaging also includes, like, for example, the costume, the objects, the recreation of the objects, the space.
Yes, it includes that too, yeah. And I think also, of course, as I got further on, you know, in the second film, I was getting more interested in her partner and other things around her, because that's what sourced her. She's not an item on her own. It's all the stuff she's been researching and thinking and reading. I thought, oh, Gaston Bachelard, when he wrote about the twigs and electricity and the energy, you know, the electromagnetic field in everything, both in us and plants and the cosmos, I start thinking, oh, did she read that? So it's all shared. It's not one person. Language takes us to that, but it's, yeah. Well, it's an important stimulus because of her research, in a sense, and imagination.
Yeah.
She obviously had a particular thing about being Jewish, being gay, but above that, her involvement with communist politics and social, whatever it is, communist, socialist, people say different things, with being part of the Surrealist group, but also an important thing from research I've done of somebody who's researched her a lot in where she was born in Nantes, is that her mother was in a mental home all her life, most of her life, and hit her and Cahun when she was quite small. This is apart from her being hit, whatever, at school and having to move to England because of anti-Semitism. this happened with her mother. And this was because her mother was Catholic and her father was Jewish. And this time this was really difficult. So a lot of her thing around religion and identities there is all, she's born into a really difficult place in terms of social identity.
I wonder about the phrase you did say in your introduction. You said the movement is not edited, it was already in the photos of Cahun. Maybe you can explain a little bit more what you understand by this.
Yeah, so where it happened, what I was saying is, it comes from, was it Thomas Lamar who's written this back? So where the photograph of I think it's meant to be like a landowner that she reconstructs in her image that says private property at the bottom, and he's got a cigar, so that signals wealth, landowner. And if he's holding a cigar, then the action is smoking the cigar. If the clip I didn't show but wanted to, where she's got a famous thing on her text saying on her t-shirt saying I am in training. In the image, you see her dressed as a ballet dancer, partly. She's partly a ballet dancer and partly a weight trainer. So you see dumbbells, I think dumbbells, for lifting weights. So there's a whole thing there about the feminine being light, exercise to be light, and the feminine to be the opposite energy coming down. And she just puts that into sort of beautiful access. Then I found text, I think, that connects with that, and I add to it a ballet dance lesson. And so it's already implied the movement of the dumbbells, I think, to be lifting it. It's already implied in the image and the ballet dance, these steps. She's in the middle of a pose. So if somebody's posing in the middle of a pose, then there's that movement's already implied. I'm not really adding something. I'm just making it come alive. But it's important. It's important, the idea that a still image can hold our interpretation of movement, because we interpret, don't we? Just like a word can be a word, but we can begin to see things from a word. Decorative corpse was one of her words, and that loaded it for me and made me think of the dead soldiers who are decorated. That's the word in English, decorated. But also might even be have a feminine element of a decorated doll that's obviously dead because it's doll. So I think there's sort of beautiful lines that I wanted to sort of animate and bring.
Just check if there's some questions on the.
Yeah, or any questions here in the public?
There isn't. I can show a clip.
So there are no questions online. So I was also interested in this tableau vivant aspect, because you said just you're not editing anything, so you're just like taking what is in the image and interpreting the image, and you said also that you were influenced, like, or you named Derek Jarman, and are there any influences from this kind of work which came in to your work, Magic Mirror?
I did say Isaac Julian as well, which is a very important reference, a Black gay filmmaker working in London. So it's a key. I have written about his work in relation to mine, where I've talked about a tableau vivant. I think he demonstrates this by restaging photographs made by Black gay men in New York in the 20s, 30s, and puts that with jazz music and poetry. And the point he was saying is this history of the Blackness of the Harlem Renaissance is there, is partly got obscured maybe, but the gayness, the gayness at that time gets obscured, gets written out of history. So he made his film Looking for Langston, and so it was about crossing time. So that was very important. Just to clarify about what you said, about what I said, I tried quite a lot to not just take her images and do my thing. I felt if I'm doing that, I want to examine what's gone on there and explore what was happening what the history of that image is if I'm going to use it. But that doesn't mean that I haven't you know, in parts imagined. It's a thin line about what I'm imagining. I just tried to imagine something, you know, that was, so had some relation in a way, although, because it would make it more interesting. It didn't mean I wasn't adding or not, or wasn't imagining. But I wanted to do it in a context that would make it more interesting than just me imagining it something somewhere else, I felt. I hope that makes a bit of sense.
Yeah,
Particularly in the second film, because of it felt as if it was less just a game to play with. I did feel this text, as it got in more and more, was, I can still show it if you're happy. We could do the still life with the black and white photograph or something, because it was quite, I felt it needed to be a testament to Cahun somehow. I didn't want to interfere too much. Didn't feel right, because this was serious material. And I think her writing in Confidence au Miroir wouldn't have felt right to mess around with that too much. That was my feeling. But I still do, as she does. She plays games with the court case, but it was a surrealist event. I think what was happening on the island in terms of the court case, I believe what she's written there is as it was. And it was highly surreal, being in this place with watercolors on the wall and this odd conversation. I'm sure that was happening, and they were kind of joking at this point. It was near to the end of the war, and they were, we can't go into that too much, but there's a story that it's real, that surrealist element. But the imprisonment was real. It was very cold. They were hungry, and because of the attempted suicide, that shortened Cahun's life, which is why she only lived so few years after.
I wonder if you can maybe explain a little bit or explore a little bit around this notion of tableaux vivants, and on the other side, nature morte, because we have this tableau as if dead, no? But we know that they are living persons, no? And who don't move, who try to be quite still. And we have the natural morte aspect. I came across in the image you showed to us, the clip you showed us, the woman in color and the decaying apples, no? The decaying apples. So this is a typical sujet of nature morte. And then I thought of the short film you made about your partner who died, and it's a kind of mourning, the relationship between photo film and tableau vivant and mourning, so, and finally death. I wonder if you have some ideas about these French notions, tableau vivant, nature morte.
I'm very interested in trying to find this intersecting between living and not living, and I guess that's it, and coming alive again. There's that kind of thing happening, making it come alive again, making the dead come alive. That is sort of what I'm doing. It is a kind of perverseness around it, I suppose. And when I did the tableau vivant, I had to sort of shorten it here, but I was trying to make the image last as long as I could, and bringing in sounds which I wasn't hearing, but I hope they're there, and that the voice, so that what I'm doing with these photographs is actually giving them more time and extending and, or giving them more time, you can't say, but the idea of duration and durating through time and holding still for quite a while is something I'm really interested in, that as a, I don't know if I'm not connecting that with you. Still life is something I've worked with in my own early work, I suppose. The still life is something in there. And I suppose still life, histories of painting I suppose I do think about them. They do impact me. I feel them in a way. I love them. I love still life painting and vanitas and everything. And I suppose I'm interested to think what that could be in film, and the fact that Cahun did these, she showed them as sculptures, but also I like the fact that it's sculpture, but also a photograph, and then you can turn it into something else. I did show the flower. I did show the flower one at the end, didn't I, with the color flowers? And I've given them color because it wasn't color before. A lot of the photographs in this second film are outdoors, and lots of them show the garden with all these flowers, and you can't see the colors. So I haven't selected these because I couldn't select enough, and I feel unhappy in a way just talking about these arbitrary clips when actually it's the whole film. That's what I've done. And there is all of these colored flowers. Then I found in a text quite late of Cahun saying when she was in prison, she dreamed of color. And I wondered about that with the photographs I did afterwards in the garden. And maybe connected with some of those late still lives. I mean, I've made connections with the text to her images that may be out of time in terms of her biography, but maybe that's also interesting that she foresees things before. So the black and white I was going to show of the sword and the leaves falling on the twigs, I overlay that with their text about the experience of being in the prison. It's quite poetic. And the images are very, very simple, so it's easy to restage them very close to the original. If we were able, I could show that last one to clip out now. You know, what do you think? Do you think we should finish the conversation talking? Would it be nice to show some of those clips? What do you think?
I have one last question, because you just talked about nature mort and still life, and so how and this topic of death, how was it to work on material of a death artist? What kind of responsibility comes with this?
Yeah, well, a lot. I was really anxious about it, and I wasn't going to do it for a while. I thought, I can't do that. That's going to be a nightmare. It was very worrying to do that. Most especially with the second film. You know, what am I doing this? And what would I know? And I was very, very worried about it. But then by the time I'd started to do it and did it, I was just like, well, I've done it. You know, I'm just doing what I can from here. And if I try to understand as much as I can, I show photographs. No, I show images that Marcel Moore, drawings that she did of their beds. A lot of this you won't know when you think, but it is there in the credits. In the prison, there was a time when they were in prison separately and a moment where they were together, and you see both of these in the stone walls, and then lines of Cahun saying something about drawing and writing in the prison. And I felt okay about it in the end, because I felt I'd researched as much as I could, and I'd gone there and to go to the journey tunnels. When I went to the Jersey tunnels, I think I went at least twice. When I did, they give you a card. Anyway, this is anecdotal. And I happened to be given Cahun and Marcel. No, just Cahun's card. It was a passport of the time while they're there. So all of those details, their passports, I've actually taken them from the museum and reconstructed. It's just one quick shot on the evidence. Evidence for conviction becomes these constructions that they made. And I thought that's really interesting. A lot of their photographs were taken that were about nakedness, that they're not, as well. But I thought that's interesting that these artworks were evidence for conviction. It makes you think that artwork, making art, actually has a political element when you're in an authoritarian environment. And so I then have this tracking across the table with all the objects from the film that I've made myself. So that implies me in this odd, but it's a labor of love that I did do with constructing all of these, researching all of her texts. In the end, I actually felt, I'd given quite a significant chunk of my life, actually, I realized afterwards, to this. So I think I sort of paid for, in some sense, I did, I won't say pay for it in flesh, but, you know.
Actually, maybe we should add also that in the last years, also there were exhibitions where there were photographs of Claude Cahun and your work together, quite a few. And when we had our first interview with you, we came up with this idea. We just talked about this, that okay, there are theater pieces, they are like played again and again, so why not take photographs and restage them and try to get in dialogue with these photographs? And this could be a kind of genre even, just take a photograph, restage it, build a tableau vivant, start to think about the surrounding of the photograph, of the moment, of the hors-champ, and yeah.
Yeah, I do think of it like that. And tableau vivant, anyway, as theatre practices are that, aren't they? People do it, they restage something from a painting. I think it's absolutely beautiful. And I think this can be done in film, it's something that film can do. So over and above any narrative around Cahun, I'm actually interested in how film can do this. And something else you've said in that was really, really important. Yeah, I see it in similar to a music score that can be played at a later time, and it really brings it into the present. And the more you can, and you're bringing it into a time that's relevant. And a theatre score, say if it's text, to bring it into the present. But also you could do it with dance, because you have choreographic scores, I understand. And I think that's lovely, because I realised through doing this, we talk about this technical thing, the photograph, but the photograph's about what's in front. And if it's staged as a performance, and that's so different to the still life, but they are both staged. In a sense, you stage your still life. It's like a set. It's just the difference is, and a lot of people have said that her still lifes are similar to self-portraits. And anyway, are they portraits or self-portraits? Because they're often other people. It's just she's performing in it. So it's always this between state. But I'm realizing now, if it's a sculpture or a sculpture in a space, she creates things on the sand, little pieces. Is that landscape? Is it? So it's, and I think she deliberately plays with that. In some of the images, you have a landscape and she's far in the distance. And I thought, she's challenging that. Is that a portrait or a landscape? Which then would have been really important separations. That's even before really photography's really established itself as an art practice. So I think it's just lovely that this can be done.
Okay, I think our time is already up, but thank you very much for this lively talk and these insights which we get on about your work. And I recommend to look at the whole film, of course, during the next few days, because then you can see it in a complete and in a whole way, which was, of course, in this kind of talk and clips presenting not possible. Yeah, so
thank you.
we have
also, I can just say also that the Lux also have Magic Mirror as well.
Yes,
they have
both films, yeah. Magic Mirror and
they're
Confessions
both
to the
available
Mirror.
there.
They're both available. We have links and passwords. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Sarah.
And thank you so much.
Thank
that was
you.
very nice.
We're doing 25 minutes of pause now, and then.
And before we go, I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed your talk. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Gustav. That makes me very happy.
Okay.
I think I'm being part of this, so I'm going to see you all in. Is it half an hour? I can relax now.
Yeah, 25 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, I'll be there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Und für uns natürlich auch alle eine halbe Stunde Pause und lüften und alles.